Well, they're some of the country's hardest workers at enormous cost to their own welfare. Every hour of every working day, 5 construction workers will suffer a serious injury. And last year, 30 of them didn't make it home at all. Tonight, the tragic reality for those left behind.
Everybody harps about safety, safety, safety until it gets in the way of production.
People are dying so often on the construction industry and we don't hear about it.
When you've got safety laws, they must be implemented. We're seeing shortcuts being taken everywhere.
Tonight, the breadwinners who head off to work and never come home.
And she said, "Is he coming home?" And I said, "No, darling, he can't come home."
Those who do make it back, but their lives are never the same.
One misstep and here I am in a wheelchair for the rest of my life.
And the former industry investigator, sick of the cover-ups.
The major contractors hide the circumstances of fatalities.
How many times in your working day have you felt a bit tired or vague or just zoned out for a while? It's something we all do from time to time, but for most of us, those little brain fades will never cost us our life. For a construction worker though, all it takes is one split-second lapse in concentration and their life can be over in an instant.
Holy
this video, shot here in Australia, was just posted online.
This thing was so out of plumb, it's not funny. They finally plumbed it up, and have a look at the wire on that crane.
The guy filming it seems to know a bit about cranes, but doesn't like what he's seeing.
Exactly. Oh man, you idiots. Oh man.
Hey. Oh. Hey. When things go wrong on a crane, those perched on top or down below are in mortal danger. And nobody knows that danger better than veteran crane driver Jim Wilton.
When I'm lifting, 9 tonne over the street, I certainly think about it. It's on my mind all the time, but I've got confidence in the people around me and confidence in the crane.
Jim has been driving cranes for more than 30 years. He's currently working on a Meriton job site, perched 25 stories up in his tiny cabin. He says Meriton's attitude to safety is impeccable, but not everyone in the industry is so lucky.
A worker has fallen to his death. Investigations are...
This was the scene last November when one of Jim's close mates, Martin Hawes, fell from a crane in North Sydney and died.
Martin was climbing up after lunch, not being watched, and he slipped, fallen down a section as he was going through the ring gear, hit his head.
Climbing and descending those ladders at least twice a day is an inherent danger of their job. Jim does it knowing he's being watched by one of his colleagues below. But Jim says nobody was watching Martin.
The first notification that there was a problem was when there was blood dripping from Martin down onto other workers.
By the time paramedics got to him, there was nothing they could do. The father of 2 was semi-retired and just filling in that day for a mate who was away at another colleague's funeral.
Just so tragic, he's 65 years old. He'd worked all his life, brought up a beautiful family, lovely wife, and went to work one morning to do a favour for somebody and never come home.
Yeah.
It's an awful reality Leanne Jurasevich knows all too well.
I never even worried about him getting hurt, let alone killed in an accident.
In the same week Martin Hawes died, Leanne's husband Stephen was killed on another job site 8 kilometres away, leaving behind his 3 young children, Sophie, aged 4, Alana, nearly 2, and son Levi, just 4 months old.
He was always full of laughter and, mucked around with the kids and joked around and laughed with them all the time.
The 39-year-old electrician was working for his father's demolition company at the site when he was crushed by something. possibly a falling pipe. The horrible news delivered to Leanne by phone.
I was at home with 3 kids and I was bawling my eyes out. So Sophie was kept asking me, "What's wrong, Mummy, what's wrong?" And I just said to her, Daddy's been hurt, there's been an accident.
But like any inquisitive 4-year-old, the questions from little Sophie didn't stop.
"Is he in hospital?" And I said, "No, darling, he's been hurt really badly. He can't go to hospital." And she said, "Is he coming home?" And I said, "No, darling, he can't come home." So yeah, I told her straight away. I figured there was no point lying to her.
For now, Leanne is at her parents' place as they help her juggle 3 kids under 4. But eventually she'll have to move back to their 2-bedroom unit in Parramatta and prepare for life as a single mum, getting by on Centrelink payments.
Never in my wildest dreams thought that I'd be A, having to raise 3 kids by myself, and B, having to explain to them death and the fact, and try and explain to them what's happened to their dad, and you can't prepare for it.
Knowing that he's, leaving behind his 3 beautiful children and his amazing wife is really hard to come to terms with.
Natalie Fraser grew up with Stephen. She started raising money for the kids, but wants every one of the 1 million Aussies working in construction to realise how easily it could happen to them.
It really does happen, and it happens to normal people like us, normal families, dads, husbands just trying out to go and earn a living for their family every day.
Stephen and Martin are just 2 of the 30 workers killed on construction sites last year.
A man has been crushed to death by falling metal beams in Sydney.
The news reports rarely go into much detail.
Investigations are continuing.
But all 30 have a name and leave a grieving family behind.
Have we heard about 30? Do we hear about the 30? No, we don't. And that's the worst thing, is that people are dying so often on the construction industry and we don't hear about it. It's just kind of pushed to the side and that's it.
1 death in the construction industry is too high.
Brian Parker is from the CFMEU. The union honours every one of their fallen comrades at this wall of remembrance. But they're getting sick of adding new names.
When you've got safety laws, they must be implemented. We're seeing shortcuts being taken everywhere, and we're seeing workers fall to their death. We've seen workers be maimed by all sorts of things in our industry.
The union says it's uncovered safety breaches on the job site where Martin Hawes died, claiming the ladder access to the crane didn't meet Australian standards. It also accuses site operator Leighton Constructions of spreading misinformation that Martin had died of a heart attack.
This is a disgrace that you've got companies, big corporations by the way, coming out and saying these things just to cover their own track.
A spokesperson for Leighton's said they had no comment on any aspect of Martin Hawes' death. WorkCover is investigating and will report to the coroner, a process that could take years.
It's very rare that you do an investigation into a fatality and don't discover usually numerous points at which the fatality could have been avoided.
Stephen Sass has investigated construction fatalities himself. For 12 years, he oversaw workplace health and safety for the Leighton Group of companies. He can't comment on any current cases, but says the industry as a whole needs to lift its game.
We're seeing an increasing trend for the major contractors to hide the circumstances of fatalities and to fail to get the lessons learned out to the industry quickly, and that's not acceptable.
What's also unacceptable is that Australia lags so far behind other countries on construction safety. In the UK last year, the number of deaths per 100,000 workers was 0.44. In Australia, it was 2.24, making construction workers here 5 times more likely to die on the job than their English counterparts.
Well, I think it's cause for embarrassment, and it should be galvanising the industry, regulators, unions to taking action to improve our performance.
Stephen Sass believes we need urgent changes to make safety a key consideration from the design phase rather than just waiting until work begins. He also says the UK has a stronger single regulator which ensures workers better understand the safety culture.
It doesn't take much, does it? It's
No,
one slip up.
one slip up and your life changes forever.
Dave Crawford is trying to win the education battle here in Australia. He was working on a single-storey house when a rafter gave way, leaving him with incomplete quadriplegia, virtually paralysed from the chest down.
I think about the accident every day. It doesn't matter what I'm doing on that day, whether I'm driving past a construction site, it brings back memories. Any time of the day, no matter what I'm doing, it always is part of my day. I often think of what if I didn't go to work on that day, or where would I be now?
He now devotes his life to saving others, travelling around to give safety talks in his role with Spinal Cord Injuries Australia.
We need to put more education out there to see that workers take home the safety message of looking after your mates, and there's a family at home waiting for you to come home.
Last year on Australian construction sites, there were 12,300 serious injuries. That's 5 workers seriously hurt every hour of every working day. Those who've spent a lifetime in the industry say some companies aren't serious about safety.
Everybody harps about safety, safety, safety until it gets in the way of production. As soon as it gets in the way of production, safety's swept under the carpet.
A bit more to your left on the floor, about half a metre.
Nobody should be expected to do anything that puts him or somebody else in danger. But it's happening.
For Leanne Jurasevich, the wait for answers on how husband Stephen died is agonising. 4-year-old daughter Sophie, their only child old enough to realise her father isn't coming home.
I mean, she often asks what happened to Daddy, and I don't know the answers to that. Like, it's still something that is unclear exactly how it happened, so it's hard not being able to answer that.
Stephen had no life insurance, and even with a possible workers' compensation payout, Leanne will have barely enough to buy a modest home, let alone provide for 3 kids on her own.
I'm not going to lie, it's a handful. It's hard enough when you've got your husband to help you, but when you don't and you've got to, manage all 3 by yourself, it is hard.
Close friend Natalie is trying to raise money to support Leanne and the kids, but more than anything, they just want every worker to realise every day could be their last.
Remember, you've got your family to go home to every night, and as much as your boss wants you to push along the job and get things done faster, at the end of the day, it's your life, and it's your life in your hands.
They are sobering statistics, aren't they? And Rotary has set up a charity to raise funds for Leanne and her 3 children. If you'd like to help, the details are on our website.